This is the theme song of the Manuel Brothers right now. My mind is going through those changes. This hour of the Howie Carr Show is brought to you in part by General Communications. Do what I did. Call General Communications to upgrade your office phone system with a ShoreTel IP system. It could save you 20% on your office phone bill every month. Call 1-800-4GENERAL. That's 1-800-4GENERAL. Or click on the General Communications banner on HowieCarrShow.com. Okay. Joining us now on the line is Jessica Vaughan. She's a frequent guest on the Howie Carr Show, a very, very good expert on the immigration disaster in the United States, and she works for the Center for Immigration Studies. Jessica, thanks for being with us here on the Howie Carr Show.
Glad to be here.
Tell us about sanctuary cities. Where do these mayors get off saying that they have the right to defy federal law?
They don't have the right to defy federal law. They do it for political reasons. They're trying to curry favor with certain groups in the population. They're certainly not doing it for public safety reasons, because these policies result in the release of criminal aliens who go on to reoffend, as we've seen over and over again. But they're doing it often because they can get away with it, too, because the Obama administration has done nothing but encourage these sanctuary policies. But there is going to be a new sheriff in town, so to speak, a new commander-in-chief, and Donald Trump has promised to crack down on the sanctuary cities,
he says
starting off by withholding money.
Yeah, exactly, federal funds. Now, these are the same mayors who have no problem with him threatening to shut off federal money from the state of North Carolina because they want people to go to the bathrooms of their birth gender. That's okay. But, you know,
exactly. Or if God forbid, a state should try to help with immigration enforcement, they got sued. You know, Arizona and North Carolina and places like that.
Right. I just don't. I don't understand what leg to stand on would say Rahm Emanuel, since we've been playing his cut all day. What leg to stand on would they have if the feds went into court and if the feds shut off all federal aid or some federal aid? Public safety assistance to the city of Chicago because they weren't obeying federal guidelines. What possible remedy would the city of Chicago have? I mean, the feds have the right to do this, do they not?
They do. Under federal law, 8 U.S. Code 1373, it says that no jurisdiction may have a policy that in any way restricts communication or exchanges of information with immigration authorities. It's right there, and the problem is that the federal government has never tried to go after these jurisdictions until now. And over the summer, Representative John Culberson, the Republican congressman from Texas who controls the Department of Justice's budget, did pressure Loretta Lynch into allowing an investigation into the sanctuaries, and lo and behold, they found that these policies are inconsistent with federal law, and DOJ is going to have to start barring them from certain law enforcement grants, like the COPS program and a couple of others. But, you know, these diehard sanctuaries like Chicago and Somerville and Lawrence and New
San
York
Francisco.
And yes, they right now are kind of thumbing their nose at the feds, but there are the tools available to not only block them from federal funding, but also potentially to have litigation against them. Some people I know, and I agree, also think that they should be prosecuted potentially under another section of the law, 8 U.S. Code 1326, which says that you may not harbor criminal aliens or any illegal aliens from or shield them from detection by ICE.
Well, you know what they're saying, though, Jessica? They're saying, well, we're not harboring any criminals. We're just not going to turn them over. We're not going if they're violent. If they kill somebody, we'll turn them over. But they get to kill one free American, or they get to have one fatal drunken driving accident. This is what happens. They say, well, we're not releasing them because they committed we're not releasing them to the ICE because they committed minor crimes, and then they continue on their crime spree and they commit a major crime, right? I mean, how many people have been killed in sanctuary? Americans have been killed in sanctuary cities in recent years by illegal aliens?
There, unfortunately, nobody keeps track of that. The federal government could figure that out, but they don't. ICE does know that in just an 8-month period in 2014, when 8,000 criminal aliens were released by sanctuary jurisdictions, just within a few months, almost 2,000 of them had already been rearrested again, sometimes with more serious crimes than the first one. I mean, we're talking sex offenders, rapes that occurred, the murder of Kate Steinle. There was a rape in Philadelphia of a young girl recently who was released by an illegal alien who was released by Philadelphia's sanctuary policy.
So 8,000.
Anecdotal. It's a problem.
Yeah. So this is in 2014. ICE has announced that 8,000 criminal aliens were released, and 2,000 of them, at least, committed these terrible, vicious, violent acts, crimes. Right?
Just within those few months that they studied it. So we know that it's happening more frequently than that. I mean, the recidivism rate is easily 50%, if not higher. And so, there's just crime is not a job Americans won't do. There's no logical reason for these sanctuaries to be allowed to do this. They do know that they're harboring them because they get a notification from ICE that says you have a criminal in custody that we have probable cause to believe is removable, and we want to take custody of them, and they release them anyway. I don't see how much, that sounds like harboring to me. They're deliberately shielding them from ICE by letting them go.
What about San Francisco? We all know the Kate Steinle story, but isn't there another case where a man and his son was murdered by an illegal alien who had been released under the sanctuary city policy of San Francisco?
Yes, the Bologna family.
The Bologna, okay.
They were killed by some gang members who just sort of made a mistake and killed the wrong people. They weren't going after them. It was kind of random, but they had been released under San Francisco's sanctuary policy. This has been happening for years, and the federal government has never taken it upon itself to take action against them, despite, the career people within immigration enforcement have been trying to, but no one has ever had the guts to do it. So until John Culberson came along with his move against Loretta Lynch, and now Donald Trump says that he's going to do it, and I believe it. It's a no-brainer. There's no reason to subsidize these jurisdictions that are undermining the enforcement of important laws that keep Americans and everybody in the community safe and keep us secure. And I think we're going to find Lawrence and Somerville and the city of Boston and the thriving metropolis of Amherst and Northampton. They're going to have to pay for it by losing federal funds if they don't see the light and come to their senses and start protecting the public instead of criminal aliens.
Isn't this nullification? Isn't that the legal term for this? I mean, isn't this the same thing that the Confederate States of America said they could do in 1861? And didn't we fight a civil war over nullification?
Yes.
How is it different, Jessica? I'm sure they're going to say, "Oh, well, you're just overstating the case," but it's the same thing, isn't it?
I feel very strongly that it is the same thing, and that the federal government should not allow these jurisdictions to defy them in this way. And sometimes they try to hide behind the 10th Amendment and say that the federal government is commandeering local resources. But there's other law that says the federal government, laws trump state and local interests, especially, and this is such an obvious public safety problem. These are people who need to be sent home. ICE knows who they are. They've been arrested. They've been convicted. There's no reason to release them.
And you hear these Democrats going. You hear these Democrats going on TV, especially since the election. They say, Donald Trump has to fix the broken immigration system. Jessica, what exactly is broken here? They're just not enforcing the laws. It's like we don't need common sense gun laws. We just need to enforce the laws that are already on the books, don't we? I mean, everything is here. Every tool is right in the criminal, the federal code.
It's true. The career men and women who have been trained in enforcing these laws just need to be allowed to do it, and that would help a lot. There is less immigration enforcement happening now with more resources for these agencies than ever before. and they just need to have, get the handcuffs taken off of them, and we'll see a big improvement. There are other things that can be done as well, and there are some improvements that could be made through legislation, but it's not going to take much. I mean, these people who say, "Oh, it's so costly to increase deportations," it really isn't. They just need to be allowed to use the tools that Congress has given them to enforce the laws. And then, of course, many people are going to start going home on their own as well.
Well, what about these people now, these mayors? I mean, Marty Walsh is one in the city of Boston, and then you have Ethan Schrimling in the city of Portland, Maine. They're saying, "Oh, well, no, we're not really a sanctuary city." I mean, what's that all about? I mean, what do you make of that?
Well, the city of Portland the city council passed a resolution that forbids local officers from asking about immigration status. So they have a don't ask policy. They don't seem to have a don't tell policy, but it's definitely a sanctuary policy, and one that it can be a magnet for illegal settlement. My understanding is that they also allow illegal aliens to get benefits there as well. The city of Boston is definitely a sanctuary also because of the Trust Act that was passed here, and it's not the worst case in the country, but they are releasing certain criminal aliens that they should be turning over to ICE, and some of them have gone on to commit additional crimes. The city of Lawrence has the worst sanctuary policy in the state of Massachusetts.
Gee, well, I wonder why.
Yeah, they don't. Over the objections of the mayor, I should add, it's the city council that did it. They will not turn over anyone to ICE, even serious criminals. So,
what does that mean? I don't understand this,
they
Jessica.
Don't all stay in Lawrence.
Yeah, Jessica, I don't understand what this means. Don't ask. So if I'm driving in the city of Portland and I get stopped for something, and they suspect I've robbed a bank or something or whatever, or run a stop sign, and they say, "Can I see your driver's license?" What if I say, "Well, you have no right to ask me for my driver's license"? I mean, isn't it the same thing? If they can't,
the cops I know, if you pull that, it's more likely that you're going to be pulled into the station and put under arrest.
But what I'm talking about is, what about my protection under the Equal Rights Clause of the United States Constitution? What is it, the 13th Amendment? I just want the same rights as illegal aliens. If illegal aliens don't have to identify themselves, why the hell should I have to identify myself?
Under Supreme Court decisions, it's not illegal for a local police officer to inquire about immigration status if the person has been stopped in an otherwise lawful encounter. They don't need independent reasonable suspicion about their immigration status in order to ask them about it.
So they can ask me about
Mueller v. Mena,
so
2005.
They can ask me about my status, but in Portland, but they can't ask an illegal alien. How does that make any sense?
It doesn't make any sense. It just shows the double standards that they're willing to put up, for political reasons, so that they can brag about how welcoming they are for immigrants.
For illegal aliens. I mean, nobody's worried about immigrants. We're worried about illegal aliens, Jessica. You know that. How about that woman the woman that was killed that just graduated college last year, I think it was, or maybe this year, in the Midwest? What was her name?
Sarah Root.
Sarah Root.
Yes.
Tell us about...
21 years old. She had just graduated the day before from college. Very good student, was excited about her life, had her whole life ahead of her, and she was sitting at a stoplight in Omaha, Nebraska, and an illegal alien by the name of Eswin Mejia, who is one of these unaccompanied youths from Central America, had been caught and released and allowed to stay here because he's a teenager from Central America. They placed him with his brother. He had a couple of brushes with the law in Tennessee, I think it was, moved to Omaha, and was drag racing while drunk on the street in Omaha and crashed into Sarah's car and crushed it and crushed her, and she died. And he was arrested. The local detectives begged ICE 5 times to issue a detainer to keep him in custody because they were afraid the judge was going to let him go. And ICE refused, saying that he was not a priority for enforcement because he hadn't killed anybody and because Sarah was not dead yet.
Yeah.
She was just in a coma in the hospital, and that he had not been convicted of anything because he never showed up for any of his prior proceedings. And so they let him go, and he is now a fugitive.
Right.
And only after the ICE director, Sarah Saldana, got grilled about this case in front of Congress did they put him on the most wanted list. Now that he's already gone, he's on ICE's most wanted list.
An American teenager, I dare say, a U.S. citizen, would have been locked up just for having driven drunk underage. You know,
Yeah,
this guy killed. This guy
he was
kills
underage.
somebody. This guy kills somebody, and they let him go. It's unbelievable. And they're complaining about Donald Trump's attempts to saying that I'm going to get these people out of this country who are committing crimes and murdering people. He's not talking about rounding up your nanny. He's talking about these criminals, and they're still screaming and yelling like he's rounding them up and sending them to the concentration camps. It's amazing.
Right. When there's such an obvious public safety benefit to doing this. And, I know Donald Trump has talked about the other night on 60 Minutes, said, he's going to go after the 2 to 3 million criminal aliens, and which he's right spot on with that number, by the way. But we really need to there's no machine that tells us which ones are going to become criminals. We need to enforce our immigration laws routinely.
Right.
And
Before they kill somebody, before you have a Sarah Root situation, before you have a Kate Steinle situation, before you have a Bologna situation. Jessica, where can people go to read up on what Center for Immigration Studies does before we go?
www.cis.org.
Thank you very much, Jessica Vaughan. www.cis.org. I'm Howie Carr.
There's only one Howie Carr.